Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. It's great to have you here today on this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where the topic is going to be going over the hidden signs and symptoms of high blood sugar. And the reason I'm titling that is because it's not always obvious that you're actually moving into a red alert zone of high blood sugar. What it means is this, is that you're going to start to see, just like anything, certain symptoms, certain signs that your body is giving you that something is not right, that your body is becoming out of balance. Now, this is well before you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes. What it means is that you're moving from normal blood sugar to a higher fasted glucose state or a longer period of time after meals, bringing your blood sugar back to normal. Now, I'm going to give you simple ways to test right at home, but also just simply looking for signs and symptoms for yourself, but also those people at work that you care about, your family, your loved ones. Remember, our goal has always been to get a health coach in every home. And I mean that, and I truly do, because this is not taught in school. It's not taught by our parents. It's not taught by our grandparents. This is lost information. So my job is to bring together the absolute best from ancient healing wisdom, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, traditional naturopathy, bioregulatory medicine, and combine that with state-of-the-art functional medicine, orthomolecular medicine, naturopathic medicine. And that's the goal. So the goal, and we created it, Integrative Health Practitioner Institute. The goal is to teach you this information so that you can not only use it yourself, but teach it to others too. So as I'm taking you through these signs and symptoms today, what I'd like you to do is kind of own them, like to really know them, to remember them, write them down, and then be able to teach it or call it out for another person that might be struggling with these particular issues. Okay, let's take you through it right now. So I'm going to take you through about 10 signs and symptoms of, and they're hidden. I mean, you don't necessarily know like, oh, this is high blood sugar. We'll do a blood pressure one later. These are signs and symptoms that you're going to start to see creep in. And what does that mean? Well, it means that if you were to test your blood sugar, it would actually be well elevated. Like it would be well above the healthy mark. And you know what? Why don't I give you the healthy mark first so you know what it is? You can test if you want, but then let's also not worry about the testing immediately and just simply look for those signs and symptoms. Okay, so when you're doing a fasted blood sugar test, you can do it, of course, with your annual blood work, with your PCP or doctor, or you can use a glucometer in the morning. And again, this is not that you have to do it, but certainly you should do it at least annually with your PCP. Now, the crazy thing to me is that you're not always told by your doctor that you should run your blood work between 8 and 10 o'clock in the morning, and it should be in a fasted state. The reason you want to do that is because your thyroid, your cholesterol, and your blood sugar are not going to give you an accurate reading if you're eating before that blood work, meaning like having breakfast. So just water from dinner the night before until you do your lab test the next morning. That's really important. You can check out my previous podcast on what to ask your doctor for your blood work. And if possible, my team will try to link that up here today at stephencabral.com/1594. stephencabral.com/1594. We'll also link up the glucometer, and I'm going to link up the stress hormones, mood, and metabolism test because that will test your hemoglobin A1C and insulin as well that I'll talk about in 1 second. Okay, so if your PCP is running your fasting glucose, it's just going to say glucose, and you want that below 100 milligrams per deciliter. Now, That's from a conventional medicine range. In functional medicine, we want it below a 95 and ideally below a 90 or below, okay? So really what you're looking for is 70 to 75 at the lowest to about 90, 95 milligrams per deciliter. And if you see it over 95, you say, okay, it's time to take action because you know what? You haven't eaten anything for about 10 to 12 hours. Why is your blood sugar still elevated in the morning? Now, you can go back to my podcast on the cortisol awakening response and why blood sugar can spike in the morning, even if you don't eat any food. Check out that podcast as well. Okay, and again, all previous podcasts are at stevencabral.com/podcasts. And you can always ask about a podcast or where to find it inside of cabralsupportgroup.com, which is our free Facebook group. Okay, so now you know where your fasting glucose should be in the morning, between essentially 75 and 95 milligrams per deciliter. Okay, so now if it's between 100 and 125 milligrams per deciliter, and that's your fasted state, that's considered pre-diabetes. Again, I'm not here or a health coach is not here to diagnose you with diabetes or prediabetes. You can look at the number yourself and you can decide for yourself. Remember, only a licensed medical doctor has the authority and the omnipotent power to be able to diagnose disease, right? So we are not diagnosing, we're not treating, we're not curing disease. We look at all of the reasons why dis-ease in the body manifests. That's how a natural health practitioner helps you to get well when conventional medicine can only offer you pharmaceuticals because they're treating the symptoms. What we look at is not the disease itself, but actually the underlying reasons as to why you got there. And that is the brilliance of natural health. And remember, I don't own natural health. I'm a natural health practitioner. I look at all of the conventional medicine studies. I look at all the natural health. I bring them together. That's what being an integrative health practitioner is all about, and that's what we specialize in, right? So that's what we're talking about. So yes, I have a doctorate degree in naturopathy, but what I care about is not degree status or anything like that. What I'm trying to do is saying there's no one best form of medicine. Let's pull them all together. Let's do what's best for the patient, the wellness client, the health coaching client, etc. You want to do what's best for the person, not try to make them fit inside of this box of how you practice. Okay, we'll move on from that little rant right there. And we're going to move over now to what happens when you have considered to have type 2 diabetes. Well, what happens is over time, it doesn't happen overnight, your blood sugar moves to above 126 milligrams per deciliter, okay, or higher on more than one occasion. So let's say that you've been taking your morning fasting glucose for a week, and every morning it's above 126. Well, that's considered type 2 diabetes. It could be regular type 1 diabetes, although you're usually diagnosed with that at a younger age. However, there's one more caveat to this. You would then run a hemoglobin A1C test with your PCP or something like the stress hormones, mood metabolism test, even though it's not a diagnostic lab. And if that number says 5.7 or higher, then you most likely have diabetes, type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes. That is when you're either going to work with a practitioner or you're going to work with your PCP and you're going to lower that number because it's crucial, because it's going to start to affect all sorts of body, brain, neurology, hormones in your body. It does not get better on its own. It's only going to get worse. And I'm not saying that to scare you, but if you have a hemoglobin A1C at 5.7 or higher and fasting glucose above 100, it is time to course correct. Follow the de-stress protocol, honestly. 21-day detox. And again, this is not a treatment plan, but you're going on exercise, you're following nutrition. Like, you need to get that back under control. Now, the nice thing is those cells will turn over. 120 days. You need to give yourself 3 to 4 months and you need to work the plan, and the plan will work for you. That's the biggest thing. All right. So now that you know, again, you can do an oral glucose tolerance test. That's what I did. That's basically how I found out I had type 2 diabetes when I was younger. And again, I was lean. I was a college student. I took the glucose tolerance test, and my PCP was just looking to appease me because I had all sorts of signs and symptoms that I'll share with you in a moment. Well, he didn't know what to make of it when I failed the glucose tolerance tests, right? And so essentially 3 hours later, Back then it was above 130. Now it's above 140 milligrams per deciliter. I came back at around 133, 136. That shouldn't happen 3 hours later after eating or taking this glucose drink. It's around 70 grams of glucose. You drink it down, you get your blood taken an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later. And by 3 hours, you're supposed to be below that 140 milligrams per deciliter. Certainly, at 3 hours later, you should be back below 100. You should be back to normal. But anyway, that's the glucose tolerance test that sometimes your doctor will give you. All right, let's move on now to those signs and symptoms. What I want to share with you is, first things first, I hear quite a bit about this in my practice. Now, I also want to separate fact from fiction. People get tingling in their hands and feet. Okay, oftentimes, this can be caused by high blood sugar, and it can be caused by nerve damage from high blood sugar. So it's certainly something to look at. If you get numbness, burning in the hands and feet, you get tingling in the hands and feet, it's important to look at it. But it could also be a lack of B vitamins like B12. It could actually be too many B vitamins. It could also be heavy metals, so mercury, aluminum, causing damage to the nervous system, inflammation of the nervous system. It could be an imbalance of omega-3s, for sure. Too many omega-3s, too many omega-6s, too omega-3s. All of these things, by the way, are testable. You can test them all right at home. And let's see what else. There's one more at the top. And again, I don't use any notes for the show. Too high of iron could certainly do that. But again, that's more of a heavy metal here as well. And the last one could be a lack of magnesium too. So those are all other reasons besides high blood sugar, but certainly high blood sugar can cause the numbness, the tingling in the hands and feet. So that is one sign and symptom to absolutely look for. All right. Another one along the skin line would be slow healing wounds. Okay. Let's say that you get a cut, you get a scrape, you get something, and it takes weeks for it to heal. Well, oftentimes this can be impaired blood flow, and it can be a sign of decreased circulation. So it could be a blood pressure issue, or it very well could be high blood sugar affecting your body's circulatory system. So important to look at that. Remember, high blood sugar, it affects various areas of the body, not just, a lot of people think of high blood sugar and weight gain. Yes, if your blood sugar is on the higher end, you're going to gain more fat. There's no doubt about that. But let's look at overall health-based reasons as well, okay? So stubborn weight loss, we'll add that one. I wasn't going to even add it there, but stubborn weight loss, absolutely. If you have a fasting glucose 95 or above, you are not adequately burning body fat overnight. I mean, that's what we teach people all the time. So again, whether you use our Fatlocity system for weight loss or not is totally irrelevant. You're welcome to use it. You're welcome not to use it. But go back and check out those podcasts I did on how the system works. It is getting you to a healthy level of blood sugar, especially overnight. That's why it's the first ever day and night formula. You have to balance your blood sugar. It is crucial that you balance your blood sugar if you want to burn body fat and not struggle to keep it off. All right, so really, really important. The next one we're going to go with is dental-based issues. Okay, so this is important. I see a lot of people with gingivitis, bacterial overgrowth in the mouth, bleeding gums, and they're doing everything they can with flossing and brushing and all of that, and mouthwash. Okay, all of that can be great as long as you're using natural products, natural dental floss, natural toothpaste, and a natural mouthwash. And I've given all those recommendations before, and my resource page is coming, should be here very, very soon. I will absolutely direct you towards that. So here's the issue though, is that you can keep working locally, which would be in your mouth, but really what you need to work on is systemic. And that goes for bad breath, halitosis, et cetera, et cetera. What you want to work on is actually what's going on in the gut. And in this case, we're talking about high blood sugar. So if you have an overgrowth of anaerobic bacteria in the mouth, it very well could be, well, one is you could be eating more processed food, but number two is your blood sugar might just be too high. So yes, bleeding gums can absolutely be a lack of vitamin C in the diet. It can also be from not flossing regularly. So all of those things you should be doing. Absolutely. No doubt about it. They're all great for your health. They're great for your cardiovascular system. Remember, what happens in your mouth, believe it or not, affects your heart. That's because if you build up plaque and bacteria in your mouth, it almost gets a free ride through the capillaries, basically the little parts of the bloodstream in the mouth, to the heart. So you want to keep your teeth and your mouth healthy. No doubt about it for children and adults. Okay. The next one I want to bring you is this. Blurred vision. I see this happen, again, all the time in my practice. It could be from low blood sugar. I'm going to do a separate show on low blood sugar. I'm actually going to make a note on this too, because hypoglycemia is actually very different than hyperglycemia. So I want to go over that. We're talking about hyperglycemia today, high blood sugar. But blurred vision can happen with both. This is important because if you start to get blurred vision, especially let's say an hour after eating, 2 hours after eating, it could be from a spike in blood sugar. It's important to look at it because a lot of people go to their ophthalmologist and they say, hey, something's going on with my vision. Why is my vision blurred? Why do I, start to see double or things start to blur together? Important to look at your blood sugar because high blood sugar is going to cause oxidative stress and it will absolutely begin to affect your vision. How many people do we know with type 2 diabetes that end up having vision-based issues? It's quite profound. Okay. The next, and this is related more to the blurred vision, a lot of people get headaches. They get headaches maybe mid-afternoon. They get headaches an hour or two after eating. If you have a headache after eating and it seems to be consistent, of course, it could be from too many histamines in the food that don't agree with you. It could be from food sensitivities. So there's a lot that it could be. But it could also be a spike in blood sugar. So if you get that headache, you're welcome to pull out that glucometer and check to see if you have high blood sugar at that moment. Even if it's an hour after eating, is your blood sugar at like a 200? And if it's a 200, well, you got a huge spike in glucose and sugar inside of your bloodstream. Well, think about the amount of insulin that your body needs to produce in order to bring that down to a healthy level. All right. So headaches is another one. This can happen as well. Sometimes with a spike in blood sugar, we often see a little bit of nauseousness, and that would be one, kind of like queasiness in the stomach. And I look at that as, well, part of it is I look at it as the body is not able to handle what it's currently going through. So let's think of it a different way. Let's say you get nervous. If you get nervous, all of a sudden it affects your gut, right? It affects your stomach. The body's overwhelmed in a state of essentially fight or flight, nervousness, anxiety. That is not dissimilar to what happens with low blood sugar and high blood sugar. You start to actually become a little nauseous. Your blood becomes toxic. So it's too low, and your body starts to either have to produce ketones or too high, and there can actually be quite a bit of acidity in the blood too. So what I look for people to do is maintain normal blood sugar, right? Normal blood sugar, you're going to get a slight curve after eating, but if you follow more of the nutrition plans that I've given you before, which contains the good protein, the good fiber, the healthy carbs, the healthy fat, you're going to stay pretty level. You really are. Same with smoothies. You really will. So that's important to look at that. Okay. Let's move on to another, and I want to go with around the same topic as nauseousness or around the eating is increased thirst. These next two symptoms, I had the headaches as well. So how did I know I might have blood sugar issues? Well, I was constantly dealing with a little bit of the blurred vision. I did. I dealt with blurred vision. I dealt with headaches. Now, I never had the nausea, but I used to have a headache every afternoon. I mean, like clockwork every single afternoon when I was in school. And I would get blurred vision without a doubt too. And I would actually, for me, I would fluctuate between low blood sugar and high blood sugar. My blood sugar did not stay stable. Now, part of that was I had Addison's disease. That was a big part of it. But I could not self-regulate. But, okay, the headaches, I had a massive thirst. Meaning, like, I always say this absolutely horrified my mother. I would take a big glass of water, be 20 ounces. Like, I can remember this red cup that we used to have, plastic cup. And I would fill it with water, and I would just drink it. And then I would fill it again, and I would just drink it. That means I took down 40 ounces of water within a minute, like nothing. And it could not satiate my thirst. My body was unable to process that water, and it needed the water in order to better dilute my blood so that it was not as filled with the glucose. Meaning, like, if you actually, your blood's 90, or your plasma is 90% water. So if you add more, well, it can actually dilute the blood sugar because now you have more blood. It's not the best way to go about it, but certainly that's why there is an increased thirst as well. Plus, your body needs to excrete some of that glucose. And here's what happens next. you have increased urination. So I used to have headaches, blurred vision, increased thirst, and frequent urination. So when I was urinating every 20 minutes, I have basically, it runs the family, diabetes. My mother's brother who's diabetic and some of our cousins who are diabetic, it was one of the first signs, is they had frequent urination. And I had frequent urination. And so that's why I didn't have a glucometer back then. That's why I ended up going to my PCP and said, listen, massive thirst, have to urinate all the time. And that's obviously doesn't work very well at school, right? So that's when they did the glucose tolerance test and figured out that's what I had. Now, the last hidden symptom I don't even like to bring up, it always goes along with the body not being balanced, is fatigue. Meaning if you're dealing with a lack of energy right now, and it's not just because of you're not getting enough sleep. If it's not you're not getting enough sleep, please listen to my podcast on how to improve your sleep. But if you're getting your 7 to 9 hours of sleep a day and you're still tired, there's something wrong. Your body's telling you something is wrong. Hormones, blood sugar, neurotransmitters, digestive issues, like something is wrong with the body. You should not be tired. I mean, that's the truth, is you should not be tired. You should wake up with energy. And if you're not doing that right now, your body is letting you know it is in a state of dis-ease. And yes, it can absolutely be highs or lows in blood sugar. I see it most often with lows in blood sugar, but it does not mean that that can't happen with a high blood sugar level, because oftentimes your body produces then a surge of insulin, and that surge of insulin then drops you into hypoglycemia, low blood sugar as well. But if you're feeling tired, especially an hour after eating, it very well could be too much blood sugar, meaning a spike in blood sugar from maybe too many processed carbs in that meal, not enough good protein, not enough good fiber, not enough healthy fat. So those are the top 10 hidden signs and symptoms of high blood sugar. If you're experiencing any of them, you can simply test your fasting glucose right at home using a glucometer. I'm going to link it up today. Just head on over to stevencabral.com/1594. You can run your hemoglobin A1C and insulin right at home using the stress hormones, mood, and metabolism test. That'll also look at your cortisol, your DHEA, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. It will look at your thyroid levels, look at your vitamin D. It's an amazing lab. I run it twice a year myself personally, just to make sure that things are still good. So huge in my recommendation for that. But just again, look at these signs and symptoms. Be aware. Share the information with others. That's how we can all move forward. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I appreciate you always sharing the show with anyone you believe could serve. Take care. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stevencabral.com/resources.